Video opens with bustling ambient sounds of a modern-day reenactment fair or a vibrant, colorful market. The visuals quickly transition between shots of handcrafted goods, cheerful vendors, and people interacting. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Close your eyes for a second and imagine the heart of a medieval town. What do you see? Towering castle walls, knights in shining armor. While those are definitely part of the picture, the real, everyday heartbeat of medieval life was found somewhere else entirely. The market square. It wasn't just a place to buy vegetables. It was the bustling, chaotic, and vibrant center of the entire community. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the sights, sounds, and smells of the medieval market, the original social network and the engine of the medieval economy. Transition to animated maps or historical illustrations showing the central location of market squares in medieval town layouts. So, why was the market square so important? Location, location, location. Most medieval towns were strategically built, and the market square was almost always at its geographical and social center. It was often situated right in front of the main church or the town hall, the two other pillars of medieval society. This wasn't a coincidence. It placed trade and commerce right under the watchful eyes of both God and the local government. This prime real estate meant that everyone, from the richest noble to the poorest peasant, would pass through the square. It was the crossroads of the world, a place where news was exchanged, gossip was spread, and fortunes were made and lost. On a typical market day, the square would transform from an open space into a labyrinth of activity before the sun even rose. Farmers would trundle in with carts groaning under the weight of fresh produce, baskets of apples, sacks of grain, and cages of squawking chickens. Butchers set up their blocks, ready to carve cuts of beef and pork. Bakers, whose ovens had been burning all night, would arrive with the irresistible smell of fresh bread wafting from their stalls. You'd have fishmongers shouting about their latest catch from the river, and cheesemakers proudly displaying their wheels of cheese. The air would be thick with a symphony of smells, the earthy scent of vegetables, the sweet aroma of baking bread, the tempts of cheese, and, let's be honest, the less than pleasant smell of live animals and unwashed bodies. It was a full sensory experience, but it wasn't just food. The medieval market was the Amazon of its day. You could find practically anything you needed. Weavers would sell bolts of rough woolen cloth, while skilled leather workers offered everything from sturdy boots to fine gloves. Potters displayed their earthenware jugs and bowls, and blacksmiths hammered away, their stalls glowing with the heat of the forge as they crafted nails, tools, and horseshoes. For those with a bit more coin, there were merchants selling more exotic goods brought in from distant lands, spices like pepper and cloves, luxurious silks, and maybe even fine wines. These goods were a sign of status and a connection to the wider world, all available right there in the town square. Now, you couldn't just set up a stall and start selling. Trade was heavily regulated. This is where the local guilds and the town council came in. Guilds were essentially medieval trade unions, and they controlled everything. The Baker's Guild, for example, would set the price and weight of a loaf of bread. This was serious business. If a baker was caught selling a short loaf, the punishment could be severe. They might be fined, publicly shamed in the stocks, or even dragged through the streets with the underweight loaf tied around their neck. Quality control was paramount. Elkonners would test the quality of the beer, and other officials would check weights and measures to ensure fair trade. The market cross, often a stone monument in the center of the square, was a symbol of this authority, a declaration that all trade conducted here was legal and overseen by the town's rulers. Beyond the buying and selling, the market square was the town's stage. It was the primary source of entertainment and public information. Without newspapers or the internet, this is where you'd hear official proclamations read aloud by the town crier. Standing on a platform, he'd shout out new laws, upcoming tax collections, or declarations of war. It was also a place for public justice. Stocks and pillories were a common sight, where petty criminals were locked in and subjected to public ridicule. People would throw rotten vegetables or insults at the unfortunate person. A very effective, if brutal, form of social punishment. For more serious crimes, the square might even be the site of public executions, a grim reminder of the power of the law. But it wasn't all doom and gloom. The market square was also a place of celebration. On festival days and religious holidays, the space would be filled with joy and excitement. Traveling troops of actors, minstrels, and acrobats would set up makeshift stages to perform plays and music. There would be jugglers, fire eaters, and even trained bears dancing for the crowds. These events were a welcome break from the hardships of daily life, a chance for the whole community to come together, feast, and be merry. Imagine the square, decorated with banners and filled with music, dancing, and laughter. These were the moments that bound the community together. The market also played a crucial role in the social hierarchy. While everyone mingled, there were clear distinctions. A wealthy merchant's wife, dressed in fine clothes, would send her servant to do the shopping, while a peasant family might be trading a few extra eggs for a handful of nails. It was a place where different social classes interacted, even if they didn't mix as equals. Deals were struck not just over goods, but also over marriages and business partnerships. A young apprentice might catch the eye of a master craftsman, or two fathers might agree to a match for their children while haggling over the price of a sheep. Life's most important transactions, both commercial and personal, happened amidst the market's chaos. As the sun began to set, the market would slowly wind down. Vendors would pack up their remaining goods, counting their day's earnings. Farmers would hitch up their empty carts for the journey home. The town crier would make his final announcements. The sounds of commerce would fade, replaced by the quieter chatter of people heading home for their evening meal. The square, now littered with straw and discarded scraps, would empty out, resting before it all began again the next market day. This daily and weekly rhythm was the pulse of the town, a cycle of production, trade, and community that sustained medieval society. So, the next time you picture a medieval town, don't just think of the castle, think of the market square. It was so much more than a shopping center. It was the dynamic, living heart of the community and economic engine, a news hub, a courthouse, a theater, and a festival ground all rolled into one. It was where life, in all its messy, vibrant, and noisy glory, truly happened. Thanks so much for journeying back in time with me today. If you enjoyed this glimpse into medieval life, please hit that like button and subscribe for more adventures into the past. And drop a comment below. What's the most surprising thing you learned about the medieval market? I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay curious.